But I would suggest that when you date, it's not probation period, for you to test the other person, but also enter from a space of like, I want to find out more about myself.
Hello and welcome to the Connect2 podcast. I'm Aaron and I'm your host for this episode. In each episode of the Connect2 podcast, we'll be tackling questions that couples ask about marriage, communication, conflict, and so much more. Today, we're exploring one of the most profound questions in relationships. How do you know this is the right person for you? We have with us today Elvin and Esther Foong, who have been married for 16 years, and Grace Chua, a newlywed. Elvin and Esther are family life educators and founders of the Treasure Box Singapore, a company that resources and trains parents to better understand their children and build stronger relationships with them. And Grace is a certified dating coach and the founder of htht.co. To get us started, I'd like to ask Grace, what is one thing that you worried the most in relationships before you got married?
So I guess two parts. I think one, when I was dating, I think for me, something that I've always been hesitant about was the fear of being hurt. Yeah, so I think in previous relationships or in dating different people, heartbreak is always very painful. I mean, for any of you who've ever been rejected before or been ghosted before, I was very afraid of the pain of that. I think something that really helped me was also to understand that the goal of dating is to discover whether the person you're dating is someone that you want to marry. Yeah, and so therefore, even a breakup could mean success. And I think changing that perspective, reframing in that way, made me realize, actually, dating doesn't have to, there may be heartbreak, but at least it's better than a divorce down the line, right? Or like your marriage falling apart down the line. So I think that was one. Then I guess the second part of the fear before getting married, right, was more of like, is this person the one? Like, is this person that I'm dating now the best for me? Is this guy that I'm seeing really like the life partner to really commit to? Yeah, so those were some of the challenges and the considerations.
Actually, for us, like, the difference is, and maybe because we were married so long ago, right? We were very idealistic. So for us, entering into the relationship or even like deciding to get married was like, okay, let's do it. Right, yeah, we chung, right? And for the record, we both got married very young compared to the stats just now, right? How old were you when you got married?
I was married when I was 22. Year 3 uni. Hey, your jaw, put back. But there were reasons for it. And the reason is not that I was pregnant. Okay, I was not. At that time, I think we were already dating for about 4 years. And then he just graduated, started work for a year. And then I was going to enter the workforce in a year's time. And we talked about marriage, but in a way perhaps different from many of you, like, when we stabilize at a certain stage, or when I've hit a certain milestone, or my career has reached a certain state, then that stability means I'm ready for marriage. But we talked about it like, hey, actually, we will enter marriage because those challenges, we want to face them together. So
Wow.
It's slightly different.
Yeah, but I think also at the same time, not to recommend that that's for everybody. Let's be practical and realistic, because the realistic part of it was also, when we got married, right, it felt like a bit of a pipe dream, right? You feel very happy. You're like, yeah, we're finally doing life together. But the truth is that the first year of our marriage was like, really trial by fire. Because you really go in not knowing anything, not knowing what to expect. We did not have access to the kind of resources that you guys have, like this kind of workshop, right? Those things were just not commonplace at all. So when we got in there, it was really like, wow, what have we gotten ourselves into? And then you got to make that tough decision of like, is this marriage worth fighting for? Is this something that we're going to stick it out with each other no matter what?
So what helped you decide that, I want to get married? Because we are in relationships, right? And some people date for very long also because they're just trying to see whether is this really the person that I want to get married. But what helped you in a sense cross that line?
A healthy dose of idealism.
And a bit of naive.
Yeah.
Naiveness
I think to be
good.
fair, we were really quite naive, but it was just the decision, the idea that, like she said, if we can go through this together, why not? Right? Let's face life together as a couple.
And the decision of simply that we will stick through with it. But the story is also that we have known each other since I was 13 and we dated for 4 years. There were already some level of rubbing, some level of understanding each other before we decided to make a certain decision.
But Esther, why Elvin? There's so many other guys, right?
It's true. Why Elvin?
You were 13 when you knew him. It's like, who knows themselves when they're 13, right?
That's
and
true.
What made you so sure that, Elvin was like...
Okay, this is a very good question. So when I was 18, 17 plus 18, we were on a community service trip to Timor-Leste, a newly independent country. So we were there to serve the community. I think it's those moments where the situation is rougher and then there wasn't enough food. Many younger ones were hangry all the time. And I genuinely saw how he served well, and then he loved people, and he was not grumpy and entitled, and I can have a whole list of it. And most importantly, my mother was also on the trip, and my mother keeps saying, 这个好, 这个好.
That's right. So that's the...
So, mother's endorsement.
No,
Yes.
yeah, but because I think there's some value in a third party's perspective sometimes, that we sometimes out of our own emotions, we don't hit. But maybe there's reason why someone would say certain things, and then we could take a second look. And that second look enabled me to look at Elvin with a different lens, understand him better, and hence we walked into dating and finally decided that this is a good man to have.
All right.
And I thank my mother.
I think your mother
is
also.
A lifetime of love and romance requires intentional effort and attention. Yet in times of busyness and with overwhelming priorities to tend to, our marriages can often take a back seat. No matter the state of your relationship today, we want to help you and your spouse thrive. Check out Connect2, featuring specially created experiences and resources, our favorite selection of articles, top hits on our podcast, date ideas, conversation starters, and more to address the issues that are keeping you and your spouse apart, and to help you rekindle the joy of pursuing one another. Visit www.family.org.sg/connect2 today.
How about you, Grace?
Very different from your story in the sense that I think we met when we were both more settled in our careers already. So I had worked for about 5 years at that point. He's the same age as me also. And I think, one reason that really helped was the relationship was really fun. Yeah, I really enjoy spending time with this person, can sit in silence, can have deep conversations, can watch movie together, can discuss movie together, it's just always endless things to chat about, and we really enjoy each other's company. There was also this sense of when I visited his church, he came over to my church, we were able to find friends and find community around us. My parents liked him also. That was super important. My parents never liked anyone that I had dated before, which was very difficult if you've ever been in that kind of situation, because I'm an only child and I'm very close to my parents. So I kind of knew in the back of my mind that whoever I marry in the future will become a new son into the household, right? Because meal times I talk to my parents, right? So this person will have to be able to join in those conversations, right? And not really see it as a chore. So the fact that my parents like him was another huge green flag. But I think one of the last ones is also because we fought well. And I think disagreements are very common in any kind of relationship, right? Be it between friends, be it between romantic partners and colleagues and all that, right? But I loved how we fight because we're both very confrontational and we're both very constructive. So I think sometimes, if I look back at previous relationships, there were times when my partner expected me to know what was on his mind, or I expected him to know what I wanted or was looking for without saying it. But with this guy, anything we just talk. And we don't take it personally. We know that if we're raising something up, it's because we just want to improve the relationship. Yeah, which I think is an approach that not a lot of people have. But we had such a healthy kind of dialogue and discourse. Yeah, so I think that was another dynamic in the relationship. When you see the two of them, right, the banter that they have, right? I think when you see couples that together, sometimes it just makes sense. I think for me and my boyfriend, fiancé, husband, just having an awesome dynamic and then being able to have serious conversation, have fun conversation, have friends around us that we can do life with. Yeah, those are all the things that kind of came together.
But what made that ultimate yes?
He never checked all the boxes. And I think, that in itself, right, was something to process. So there were a couple of things he did not check off. One is, I'm very fit-spoken. I love exercising, but he don't exercise. And I love eating healthily. I love my vegetables, but he loves fried chicken. He don't eat vegetables one. So those are two things which I thought were very core value to me. And even in previous people I had dated, or in my list of someone who exercises and eats well or is healthy. It was definitely something that we were very different about. But then it was something that I realized, okay, in the grand scheme of things, it's okay. He gives me the space to eat my veggies. And I think over time, I have rubbed onto him lah. Like it feels like every month he discovers a new vegetable.
Hey, but I think what she said about checkbox green flags, you're like, oh, this is good, right? But I thought we should also look at what are some non-negotiables, right? For example, if we always have this conversation when we are teaching children or parents, it's that a decision point is never a decision point itself. So if you have not thought through what are your non-negotiables and then your emotions take the lead, you may end up in relationship that you realize, how? For example, if your non-negotiable is someone who should never raise a hand with a family member, you must register in your mind that when that red flag arises, you turn and you go. Run away, flee. Because if you don't make this decision before your emotions take the lead, then you may end up in very crumbly places. She mentioned the green flags, but there are also red flags that we should prepare ourselves and make a list. Don't just make a list of like, oh, must have this. But we should also make a list of should not,
You know, it's what Esther said, right? We always look out for all the good stuff only, and we kind of like get blinded lah. Yeah, or blindsided by the fact that perhaps there are a lot of red flags, but we don't see it. We know that there are non-negotiables, and we should be clear about that. We should perhaps even talk to someone that we can trust. So not just keep the list to yourself, but perhaps your parents, right? Like your mom she knew what kind of list you had also. And yet at the same time, we don't check off all the boxes, like what Grace mentioned. You are married now. You are working things out still with your husband, right? You're still having those dialogues with him about eating healthy. And I think that's something that we can still continue to work at. It doesn't have to be like a done deal.
Yeah, I think in the process of dating, you discover things that should be on the checklist that you never considered before. Right? And that's a process of being in a relationship with someone. I think in my earlier list, the way we fight was never a consideration. And only through dating previous people and then having like very tough fights or like being verbally abused, right? And being shouted at, then you're like, okay, I never want to be with someone who treats me this way. Yeah, and unfortunately, like it sometimes takes you the journey of going through it to realize, okay, this is what I want or this is not what I want.
And I know of many couples also who have challenges with finance, right? You know, I think that's a major thing that they have not settled even before they got married. And then later when they get married, they have differences on how to handle money. And that's probably quite a big pain point for most of them.
Something that really helped me was I attended 2 pre-marriage courses before getting married. So for those of you who are unfamiliar, there are quite a lot of organizations. I mean, Focus is one that organizes this, but there are a lot of pre-marriage courses out there. And the material is really helpful because as a couple, you go through different modules on important topics around like communication, conflict, adventure, money, finances, in-laws. And it creates the space for you and the person that you're dating to have a discussion about these things. So really about the one about money, I think what we discovered, at least in my relationship, that for me, money is about security, whereas for him, money is about status. So now we discover, okay, we have different views of money. Even the way that we spend money and save money is very different. And how then do we reconcile that? Or what is the choices that we want to make as a new family unit about money?
How do you figure out your non-negotiables in a relationship? Especially more challenging values such as whether having kids is a must for you, which is something that's harder to find out through experiences. So what are your non-negotiables? Or how do you figure it out?
I think for me, so many different ways. I think one is, even you ask ChatGPT, give me a list of values, right? Then they come out. Then you're like, okay, this is me, this is not me, this is important to me, not important to me. I mean, that's really a starting point, right? I think I have gone through many, many values exercises in my life. One of the times I can recall is really I looked at a book of values and I really just like looked at them and like, okay, this is important to me, this is not so important to me. And I think I heard this very insightful idea that there's a difference between values and value systems. So value is, okay, maybe my top 5 values are parents, family, friends, career, personal growth, something like that, right? So 2 people can have the same values, but we may have different order of how much we prioritize those values. So I may say career important to me, career important to you, but of my top 5, actually career is my number 1 and career is your number 5. And family will come before career. So I think firstly, it's also unpacking what do those values mean to you and how do they play out in real life. Because 2 people can say family is important to me, but family is important to me and maybe like I will never miss my parents' birthday. But maybe family is important to you that I meet my parents for meals and my grandparents for meals once a week. Firstly, like figuring out for you what those values mean. And I guess the second portion about kids, right? I think that was a question about how do I discover if I want kids or not? I think definitely if you are someone who's very convinced and very convicted that you do want kids, then I would highly encourage you to date someone who also wants children. Because the choice of whether you want kids or not is really your future life together with this person and the kind of family that you want to build. I've also heard it being said that some people are like, oh, if my partner wants, then cannot, But then again, there's also a danger in that, in the sense that if this person says this thing, and then they're like, okay, let's have kid because you want, right? Then in the future, raising the kid, then it's like, so difficult. It's you want one, So then the responsibility no longer becomes like we both are committed. Yeah, it's a shared parenting responsibility to want to build this family life together with and raise these kids, and even the view to parenting. Do you think that it's important to date someone who shares aligned ideas around whether they want kids or not? And if you're on the fence, it's worthwhile to spend some time around other married people with kids. Because I think sometimes the fear around kids is that you don't know how to interact with kids. And maybe you just need more exposure to spend time with kids.
But exposed to the correct kids.
Or the correct parents.
Yeah, I think that plays a big part,
Okay, time has caught up with us. Maybe just some last words to wrap up today's session. Elvin?
I think for me, when it comes to dating, right, again, the concept of dating was very different in our time versus now. But I would suggest that when you date, it's not probation period, for you to test the other person, but also enter from a space of like, I want to find out more about myself. What triggers me? What are the things that get me excited? What are the things that actually I feel strangely that, how come I didn't used to be bothered by some things, but some things are bothering me now? Dating is also a journey of self-discovery, not just other discovery. So when you get into it from that point of view, right, so even if, let's say, it doesn't work out, you come out with a better awareness of who you are as a person. Then you're more ready for the next person that, let's say, okay, I want to give dating a try again. You know what triggers you. You already know where your values, where your boundaries are. So don't see it as something like, that's you. You fail. You pass, okay, can get married. But it's like, okay, where can I grow as well?
I know only some of you have dated before, and then some of you may be thinking about dating or maybe want to be more proactive in getting to know people. So I think riding on what Elvin has shared, I just also want to say that even in the face of breaking up, there's nothing to be shameful. And also I realize that some of us feel that if we date, we must get married. And I feel that that is also something to really consider, whether when we date, we must really get married or not, or that on this journey of discovery, we discover that we are not suitable. I just want to say that it is okay to walk away. And that is courage. Sometimes courage, we think that is the courage to push through. But there is space for pushing through, but there's also space for the courage to walk away. If you are nailing too many red flags, just because you have invested 4 years, 5 years of your time, you feel that it's not worth it, and I'm of this age, I should get married. All those shouldn't be your decision points for entering marriage. Entering marriage is not like, I've invested so much time already, cannot waste it. I must get married. Or that I can forego all this, should be okay. He may change, she may change. I think don't let those things blur your decision-making abilities, or even some of them will say, but you invested so much time, everybody this age, you still break up. There's nothing shameful when you discover something is wrong. Take courage and walk away. I think this is also important to know. Yes.
Building on from that, I once had a thought that I'd rather be a happy single than be in an unhappy relationship. And I think, really to build on from that point, we did talk quite a lot about green flags and red flags, right? But the goal of dating is not to collect green flags or identify or point out red flags. If there are red flags in a relationship, engage in them. See if you can turn those red flags, or together with your partner, allow them to grow into yellow flags or green flags. Because a relationship is a continuous journey of navigating together and figuring things out together. Right, and hopefully, if you are able to turn those red flags into yellow flags into green flags, then that's a good thing. There's progress in the relationship also.
And we should actually be proud of ourselves if we actually work things out maturely, sensibly, and we celebrate that and enter marriage. I think that is beautiful. Okay, so I think approaching things with the correct perspective and good decision making is the key to a good and successful marriage in the future.
Thank you so much, Grace, Elvin, and Esther. Before we go, we usually end off with a couple challenge for couples to do and share with each other. So if you're listening to this with your spouse, think back to when you first decided that the other person was the one for you. What was the key thing that helped you realize this? We hope today's topic has given you some practical handles on how to have a healthy perspective on dating and marriage. Do subscribe to the Connect2 podcast and share today's podcast with a friend who may benefit from it. Thank you for tuning in, and do take care of yourself and your spouse.